Welcome, my friends. Silouan here. Today, I am going to be talking about the traditional, ancient tradition of getting married. That's right. Now, why am I doing that? Well, it's because yesterday, as I was driving around, I listened to, it was funny, I was listening on the radio and it came up, and then I was listening to a podcast and it came up. And it was basically on how so many young people now don't even see marriage as like an objective in their life. It's more like a checklist item. I'm going to graduate, I'm going to do this and that, and then maybe I'll get married, whatever that means. And I was just thinking about why that is. And today, I want to talk a little bit just about why I think part of that motivation may be there, or lack of motivation may be there for them and what it means. And it's this. I think they don't see marriage as having that great a value, or they don't understand what the value is. So I just want to pull a word in today for the value of marriage. Now, just at its simplest level, think about it. Two is greater than one. Two people will have an advantage over one person in a fight. Two people will have an advantage over one person raising money. Two people will probably beat one person on a basketball court. I mean, you name it. Two people will raise a child better than one person. Two's greater than one. Now, we maybe could have an argument whether two's better than one, but two is definitely greater than one, okay? So, one of the main motivations that somebody should have for getting married is that two is greater than one. Now, when does that become an advantage? It becomes an advantage when those two people are trying to grow the same thing, which is, I think, where almost immediately people get lost, because especially young kids today, most of them don't have a good example of mom and dad being unified, working towards the same objective, and seeing the power of two people working together, because they grew up in a very selfish age where it was all about I and what they wanted, and mom's over here and dad's over here, or, this isn't working for me, so we're going to get divorced. And then, mom's living over here and dad's living over here. And it's not the power of two. It's really it's the negativity of two being separated. And so they look at that and they go, well, man, I would be better off if I wasn't married, or I would be better off if I waited to be married. And that's very logical, because when you don't see the impact of two being greater than one, you're not even going to really see how that exists, but it exists. So how do you do that? Well, first of all, when it comes to finding that partner, finding that person that you're going to marry, we want to do it, from in the movies or Instagram. How do they look? Or how do they make me feel? Or, am I attracted to them? And there's no objective to it, okay? It's very random. It's very animalistic, okay? It's very mating ritual type thing. But what if you looked at it like this? What if you sit there and you thought to yourself, okay, what would I like to get out of life? What would I like my life to be like, okay? What kind of family would I want? Where would I want to live? What kind of job would I like to have? Be very strategic about it. And then begin to ask yourself, and don't be afraid of being a little transactional. Hey, how would a relationship help me get that? I want to live in the country, and I want to have a lot of land, and I want a place that I can run around, and if I have kids, they can run around. Okay, that's what that looks like. How are two people going to do that? Look at your faith. What kind of faith do you want to have? What kind of faith do you have? Look at how you work out. Look at how you take care of yourself. Look at all that. And then you start to ask yourself, who is somebody that could help me do that better? Who is somebody that could help me improve that, okay? That's who you marry. Now, they may be different. They may have different skills, okay? But you're looking at someone that two is going to be greater than one. And then, this is the very important part. We are emotional people. We make bad decisions in the blink of an eye. One minute we got a plan, and the next minute something good looking and flashy distracts us, and the plan goes out the window. You've got to be disciplined. And honestly, this is where faith comes in and discipline of life comes in. Because you will get distracted by things that will take you away from your objective if you are not disciplined and you do not focus on what is important. And so if you allow faith and discipline to lets you see where important is make my tribe bigger, get more people that support me, get more people that support each other, love each other, take care of each other, be selfless, okay? And you're constantly hearing that message and you stay focused on it. That's what you'll get. But if you're constantly being distracted, what's important to me? What looks pretty to me? You know, what's going to feel good tonight? You know, you're going to get yourself in trouble because you know what happens? You end up being attracted to people that are the same way. And so instead of being in a tribe where everybody's got each other's back, you're in like the opposite of the tribe. You're like in a gang. You're in a gang where people are just being selfish and getting what they want. And, you know, in the work that I do, traveling around, you know, talking to people in trauma and crisis, talking to men and women in demanding careers, when marriages break apart, they all end up in the same place, a couple of selfish people. That's where it all ends up, because it ain't better for anybody. You know, it ends up with a bunch of selfish people going, what's best for me? Now, again, they may have very good reason for it. They might. You know, I'm not even saying that once you get there, there's anything else you can do. You know, if I was a woman and I was in a relationship with a selfish, abusive man, you know, you end up in a place where you're like, I have to do this. One of the hardest parts is that you're making that decision for yourself. How do you rebuild from that? How do you regain trust? How do you regain trust in your child? You know, everybody's affected, even if when you end up there, the decision you're making is the correct one. But we don't want to end up there. Why were you with that prick in the first place? Because I guarantee he was. You know, that person who ends up abusive might not have been abusive in the beginning, but I guarantee you they were selfish. I guarantee you they were self-centered, okay? I guarantee they didn't treat people kindly. And see, we've got to be disciplined enough to look at that and go, that's not going to build my team. That's not going to build my tribe. You almost got to have like your checklist, and you got to live your life that way. I remember after my jet crash, I was talking to my psychiatrist, and it wasn't even like psychiatry stuff, it was just life stuff. And I had kind of always seen women as objects. Like a woman is an object. A woman is someone that does something for you, okay? And I didn't see them in terms of relationship and friendship and whatnot. And there were two things I learned from that. And one, it was, if you really are gonna understand somebody, you gotta be friends with them first. And see, when you're friends with someone first and you take the time to get to know them, then it's a lot easier to have an objective picture of, okay, together are we better? Okay, that's number one. And then number two, so much about having a strong relationship and being ready for it is what kind of person are you? You know, and I kind of came up with this phrase, and it was, you know, become the person you were meant to be, and you will find the person you were meant to be with. You know, you want to be able to look in the mirror and go, I like you. You're a good person. And I'm going to find another person who's a good person, and they like themselves. Because if you get in a relationship and you have two people and they both like themselves and they both like where they are and they both see each other as bringing them to a higher level of what they already wanted, you're going to be good. But I'm telling you, you got two people and they look in the mirror and they don't really like themselves and they're not really happy about where they want to be and they're not really where they want to be at. And they look at another human being thinking you are going to make me better, you're in big trouble because you're setting that person up to let you down. You're setting that other person up to put too much pressure on them to make you happy. Well, that's your job. You should already be there. Two is greater than one if we let it. Now, you might be asking yourself, who is this dude giving us this advice? I got a little experience. I've been married for 27 years. I've got 9 kids, and I love my life, and I love my wife, and I love my kids. And it hasn't always been easy. It's been really hard many a times. And anyone who's been in a long relationship, especially when think you're trying to achieve a lot, you're trying to do a lot, like, you know, you're intentional about we want a big family. You're intentional about we want to live out in the country. You know, we homeschool our kids. We're intentional about it. It's hard. Guess what? You're going to have moments that you kind of hate everybody's guts. You know why? And you know why? You're going to have moments where you kind of hate everybody's guts, including the one that you love, because we're selfish. This goes back to Job. You know, if you've been following my Job series, you know, really the point of the whole book of Job is our most innate flaw is our pride, is that we think the universe revolves around us. And so what happens in even the closest of families, and I would argue And in some ways, the closer the family is, the greater this pressure can feel because you want it to be a team. It's not easy to break away from it and be an individual. But what can happen is when you're close and there's a lot of pressure you're feeling and your pride takes over, which it usually does in those circumstances, you start looking at everybody else going, what are you doing wrong? Things would be different if only you did this. Things would be different if only you did this. And you're totally looking away from yourself. You're not looking in the mirror. Your pride is taking over. And then you're in the furnace, man. You're in the fire. But see, here's the beautiful thing about marriage, about family. When together you face those moments, because where does a sword gain its strength? Where does it get the raw material to get the edge that you're going to turn into a weapon? It's in the fire. It's in the forge of life. The hotter the fire, the greater the forge, the better the outcome. And see, in those moments together, when you're hating each other's guts, and it's going to happen, you make it through those moments. Man, it's not just 2 is greater than 1. 2 becomes 5. 2 becomes 10. 2 becomes infinity. Because when you've got a couple of people and you've got a family and they've made it through the forge together and they made it through by always being able to come back to we are what matter. That person that loves me and who walked with me is what matter. I am the problem. I need to look in the mirror. And everybody's doing that. And I know not everybody does, and it leads to bad problems. I get it. But if everybody's doing that, you're stronger. And I really believe this. If you want the strongest, most bulletproof life that you can possibly have, with the strongest armor around you, you be clear about who you are and what you want to become. You find somebody with those same objectives. You build a relationship together. You get married. You form a family around those objectives intentionally. You raise your kids that way. You go through the forge of life because you will have moments you hate each other's guts because it's tough. And when you come out of it, you'll be stronger and life will be bigger. And you will feel more fulfilled than you could doing anything else in life. And it's built into us. That's our genetics. That's our DNA. That's how we evolved. Okay, I'm not preaching to you. This, yeah, it's in the Bible, but it's not a Bible thing. It's a human thing. You could be an atheist. You're going to be stronger. You could be a Buddhist, a Southern Baptist, a kayakist. Okay, you're going to be stronger. You're going to be tougher. You're going to be forged in fire by what matters. So, you're talking to friends, you're alone, you're thinking, I'm better off alone. I want you to hear a little voice in your head. Liar! Liar! Now, you might be better off right now because you might not be who you need to be. The right person might not be in your life. That's okay. Work on yourself. Work on your humility. Okay? Work on the things that matter. Work on your faith. Work on those things that draw you back to what we talked about in Job, about killing your pride, about being humble. And I promise you, somebody is going to come your way that feels the same way, unexpectedly, almost miraculously. They're going to come. And then when they come, you remember those lessons. Man, you love each other. You tell each other when the fire is burning its hottest, we're going to get through this together, even if I want to punch you in the face or whatever it is. And you're going to make it through together, and you're going to be tougher. And then you're going to get little ones around. Maybe it'll be 1 or 2 or 9 if you're crazy, like my wife and I. And you're going to be stronger, and you're going to be better off. And it is going to have been worth going through it together. So a few words on marriage, defending marriage, the purpose of marriage. For you, my friend. I'm Silouan. I'm out.